AnimeSecrets.org, the answer to all your burning questions.
And hey, I'm Awkward Cosplay Girl from Anime Secrets, and I'm here with Miss
Kat Musgrove. I work at Trouble Impact,
and we're going to be talking about her game,
which is called Color Thief.
and we are very excited to talk about this at RTX 2016. So, what really got you, into this game?
Yeah, so, I guess the best way to explain it is, this is sort of, my dream game, right? I don't play, a ton of video games. I kind of like little bits and pieces. So the idea for this game was to sort of take kind of the influences that I liked from other games and see if I could build an experience, kind of cutting out all the parts that I wasn't interested in. And so that's kind of where Color Thief came from, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I really love the name because it's great and you get to really see the elements of what the game actually is just through the title, where you're playing as a chameleon, just taking color. How did y'all get that concept?
So it's actually really funny because when we first came up with the idea for color manipulation, well, I guess I should start with Isam used to be a graphics engineer at a bigger game company that we worked for. And there's kind of an adage in video games, which is gameplay first, graphics second.
Yeah.
And so one day we were talking about well, what if that wasn't the case? What if graphics were part of gameplay? And we kind of, pitched around a few ideas and came up with this idea of moving color around. And the first concept that we had was actually, it was an isometric stealth game, and you were in a museum stealing gems, colored gems. So that's actually where the name Color Thief came from. And once we prototyped it, it was really boring. So we decided okay, well let's really go for it. Let's make the game that we want to make and go full 3D and let you wander around a world and explore it. And the name just kind of stuck with it through all of that. So.
I think one of my favorite part of the games, like you said, you took all the elements of your favorite games and you put them in them, and I think that's my favorite part is you can feel that essence of I feel like I've played something like this before, but I haven't played it in so long.
Yeah.
Do you have any games that heavily inspired y'all?
So I definitely think there's a bit of Zelda influence in there. I think a lot of people kind of feel that. Although the parts of Zelda that I don't like are all chopped out, right?
Yeah.
So there's not as much repetition or heavy tutorializing or that kind of thing. But sort of that idea of what is this mysterious world, and definitely a lot of I think it feels more Zelda because of the third person camera.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Also, definitely Shadow of the Colossus. That's a game that I really love the atmosphere of. And I don't think our atmosphere isn't really the same, but I like the idea of same kind of thing. You just sort of wonder about what is this place and what happened here? Why is it ruined now and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Whenever I emailed you about this interview, I really compared it to Portal because that was one of my favorite games. In my early teenage years, whenever I was just sitting there playing, and they never really did a good tutorial because it's just here's portals, do it.
Yeah.
And I love that feel of y'all's game where they just here's color, do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing that. And how did you come up with each level?
Yeah, so
that.
It's kind of, I guess it's all sort of based on that idea of because we didn't want a heavy-handed tutorial, we kind of wanted to just sort of naturally build on gameplay.
Yeah.
So it's very logical, the way that the game progresses, and because of that, the way the game was designed is very logical. It's okay, well, let's just start at the beginning. If you know that you can do this with color, first I teach you, you can move color around. So what does that mean? And then I teach you okay, different things react to color different ways, and so how does that translate into a puzzle? So it's just a very each puzzle is kind of a step forward or a step in a different direction to kind of just try different things out.
And I know this is very much alpha, and y'all are still working on it a lot. But you could still see elements of the story there.
Yeah.
Is there going to be like anything else that's other than the hieroglyphs on the wall? Because like I'm very curious about like if those are pigs or weasels on the wall. I'm just like, what are those? Those could be like 6 different animals. I'm confused.
I think the ones you're talking about are, oh man, what are they called? So the first temple is inspired by Sri Lankan architecture. So it's a Sri Lankan animal that's like a type of deer.
Oh,
so that's what that one
so
is.
it's a deer.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, because whenever we were playing the game, we were just sitting there and we're like, okay, so these chameleons must be like doing something with these things.
Right.
Like trying not to give too many spoilers. They're just doing something with these things, but we have no idea what they are because like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's like a thing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of that's something we're definitely going for. Was like the story is very much in the background, and you have to dig for it if you want to figure it out.
Yeah.
So like if you don't care about the story at all, you can just totally ignore it and solve the puzzles. But if you do care, you just kind of have to keep your eyes open as you go through the game, and it's mostly going to be told through kind of the hieroglyphs. But in very like disconnected sort of pieces, and kind of like my ideal outcome would be that people would come up with their own theories, and that people would have different theories and maybe even argue over what the right one is. Like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to leave those gaps open so people can fill them in on their own.
Yeah, that's like a really great thing, and like I really love that kind of stuff. Because like I said, it's like really reminiscent of my favorite game series.
Cool.
And like, I love your series. It's a great puzzle game. I really hope everyone like gets a chance to play this because like just having a chance to even play the alpha, y'all have done so well at like getting people like interested in it. Because I was sitting there playing it and I was showing it to like one of my friends who was in the room with me. And they were like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get too into this." And then, like, as I was doing the puzzles, then they're like, hold up.
Hey, what if you try this?
Yeah, and then they started getting into it.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, really big party games, and, like...
It's like a collaborative. Like, that's what's really fun about showing the game at events like this, is you'll see, like, groups of friends that try to play it, and they kind of end up working together, and like, or like, one person will be playing, the other person won't be paying attention, and then they'll end up jumping in. And I think that's like a really fun experience.
So, are y'all going to be doing any multiplayer or anything with that?
I don't
y'all
think
just
so.
think y'all just going to keep it single?
Yeah, I think single player. Maybe someday in the future, but for this version of the game, I don't think we're going to do multiplayer.
Yeah. So all of your prices was posted up on the wall, and sadly, like, I have bad memory, so I can't really remember them. So
we're doing, we do have like, since the game's not out yet, it'll be out probably like middle of next year. But we're doing kind of a pre-order thing on our website, which is just colorthiefgame.com. And that's kind of like if you want to help us out kind of pre-order. So the way that works is you can pay $15 to pre-order the game. And that's actually, we think the game's going to be $20 when it comes out. So it's like a slight discount if you want to get the game now. And then it's $20 for the pre-order, so you'll get the game when it comes out, but you'll also get the initial access like demo now.
Yeah.
And that's the section of the game that we're showing this weekend, which is kind of like, it's really just the beginning of the game. So you'll get kind of a chunk of it. And then if you pay $25, you get 2 copies of the pre-order. And then you also get that initial access, and you get something called the coloring book mode.
Yeah.
And the coloring book mode is like, it's a separate gameplay mode where you choose different rooms, and you get like unlimited color that you can play with. So it's kind of like it's meant to be sort of like a relaxing, like you can just sort of play with color, and like you don't really have any goal.
Yeah.
Although I always tell people like, oh yeah, it's relaxing, but like whenever I do it, I get like really intent at like, oh, I have to fill in like every single thing. And but it's pretty fun. So
And I saw that y'all were thinking about doing it on console and PC.
yeah,
What
so
consoles were y'all thinking about going on to? And stuff?
yeah, I mean, like PC is the only definite right now, but we're really open to the possibility of maybe being a console game, especially because it's a very comfortable controller game. So we're kind of still just exploring different options. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, I mean, we'll just sort of see what happens with that.
All right, and thank you so much for interviewing with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So anyway, that was Miss Cat and from
Triple Impact.
Triple Impact, and then you have me, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
So, nice to meet you. My name's Alex.
Isam, nice to meet you.
So you've been developing the game engine and more technical stuff behind.
Yeah, I'm the engineer programmer.
So what sort of challenges have you been up to while developing it?
So we're using an engine called Unity. So obviously that saved us time to like do the initial part. The main challenge was like because the game is kind of different concept-wise. So it's like not the kind of game people. So like moving color from object to object is not something you do in other games. So like the engine is not made to support that initially. So we had to figure out a way to make it work. So a lot of it is like our design is being different. Means we had to write a lot of the code that wasn't
That sounds like a lot of work.
made herself. Yeah.
What were the easier parts of the development?
Oh, the easiest parts. I don't know if anything was really easy
Was
other
anything
than
just
long.
incredibly fun?
Yeah, it's kind of there is that thing where like when you work on something is good and you're like having fun doing it. Like sometimes you like lose you lose time because I was talking like recently about we added that coloring book mode.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
I tried it. It was interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. That was a lot of fun.
It's kind of that sandbox mode where you can just color. So like Kat sent me a bug about, hey, there's a problem in this thing, and then you go in to fix it. But then 30 minutes in, you're just been coloring everything because you haven't been working at all. You've just been playing the game, coloring the world, and then you're like, then I sent her a screenshot of the world. It's like, well, I didn't fix the bug, but this is my this is my coloring book that I just did.
Easy to get carried away.
Yeah.
Oh, it's certainly
It's
a good
kind of
sign
fun.
of a fun game if
Yeah.
it can capture you that easily. And I think it managed to capture us. We were like, oh, we're going to try it out for a short bit of time, and then we ended up spending a few hours
Nice.
playing around with it.
That's good.
And it was quite a bit of fun. What I think how to word it. What would be what groundbreaking things did you have to do this time that you've never tried before in programming?
Never tried. Obviously, in terms of engineering, the graphic stuff, it's like when you take color, you can see the color kind of like coming in and spreading out, which like was kind of a challenging thing to like in terms of shader and graphic engineering to be able to like it goes from where the chameleon hand is touching the object, it spreads out and come in. It was kind of a
Transition was
yeah.
difficult.
It was difficult. The other thing was because we're only two working on the game, and Kat is doing a lot of the art and then design and stuff. A lot of the way you do physics is generally like in games. It's like someone else or someone makes like simple physics collision. So when you have a big fountain, for example, we have like entry gate design, entry gate objects.
Yeah.
Generally, like in games, the physics for it is just a box. But that involves a lot of time for someone to do manually. Like you do the art, then you have to do the physics.
Match the physics
yeah.
to the
so,
to the object.
So we had to make the engine works with the complex graphics. So like the chameleon can kind of climb on every mesh and everything. So it doesn't have simple physics. It has like complex geometry.
Now, I know whenever you're walking on a solid surface, if the solid surface is water, you can turn it back into a liquid. What are the challenges in converting between a solid and a liquid?
It was kind of interesting because you can doing it. The converting part is kind of easy. It's like you just swap between the two objects, and then but the problem is how do you make the transition and like look good, because like not via blink and stuff, and that's the problem because like when you take from the water, it's lifting you smoothly
out of the water
and out of the water, and then it's
surface.
become a solid. So like that was the main like challenge of like a lot, nearly I would say 90% of the code of that thing is just about the transition of like how to make it smoothly. And going back, it's kind of the same with nearly everything. It's like we didn't have it in the demo, but when you take color from fire, the transition from the fire to the solid is the same thing. Like nearly every
The fire kind of dies out and it becomes solid.
It's solid, and a lot of the code is about that transition, about like making it look good and feel kind of good, you know, stuff like that.
How much development do you think you have left on the engine, or is the engine complete and you're just going to develop more levels from here on out?
We're developing more level. It's mostly complete. It's kind of a lot of polish left. So, in the later section we have carry. You can carry things, and it's kind of the same of like we want to make it like more polished. So like
carrying
a better
like the solid fire.
Carry the solid fire, and it's kind of anecdote wise, like it's kind of funny because we didn't think about it, but the character is cute, but his limbs are really small.
Yeah,
so he can't carry it above his head because his hand doesn't go. So that's that would have been the simplest thing, because you'd be like, I carry above my head, and then there's no hitting things in front of me when I'm carrying something. But because his limbs are so small, you have to carry it in front of you.
Yeah.
So now we have the problem of like, I need to be careful, like when I'm moving with something, like I need to make sure that the thing I'm carrying is not going through a wall and stuff like that, and things
you don't
like
want to push something, push
Yeah.
your hands through a wall or.
And so in terms of what's left to do is a lot of that. It's a lot of like that polished phase of like making it look more professional in a way. Like we could release it, but it's because the game is kind of how can I say it, like exploring the world, seeing it's all about like the emotion in a way of like feeling.
Yeah.
If it gets too clunky, like if you're carrying something it's clunky and it's kind of not, it doesn't feel good, it become aggravating. It kind of remove you from that like observing the environment and like enjoying.
Breaks the immersion.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw is that whenever you're going to pick up the fire, it looks like you'll have a nice smooth transition for picking up the fire. So I imagine you put a lot of work into to moving the items around and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like kind of we talk with Kat and then like we work on it. It's like animation of picking it and making sure you're at the correct place and like kind of stuff. In this case, it also was like sometimes when you play other games, you kind of like when you pick something, it kind of like snaps you to the correct position.
Yeah.
And we didn't want that, so there was a lot of work of like anywhere you are around the object, it should be able to pick it up without like snapping you to a position that's like you can play a pre-made animation and stuff.
That sounds good. And Kat mentioned that you were going to be releasing it as an alpha at some point soon, and then after that, eventually having the full release shortly afterward.
Yeah.
At what point do you think you'll be releasing it, if you can say?
Oh, the full game?
Or the alpha.
Oh, the alpha. We started doing a pre-order on our website, so like people can have the demo.
So it's available now?
Yeah, so you can have the demo that you guys played, and they can like, if they pre-order the game, they can have access to it, and that kind of things. Later on, we might add more to it for people. The main challenge is kind of like, because it's a puzzle game, and it's kind of an experience that's made to be sitting in and like enjoying it. It's kind of like if you give too much initially,
it breaks the immersion later.
It breaks like, because then you have like maybe 3 months between the initial playing the first temple and then moving on to the other temples and kind of stuff. So we're still like discussing about that, but like the initial demo is available right now if people pre-order.
Have y'all given any thought to having user-created content where someone might be able to develop a level of their own?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's more of a question of time in a way.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do in the engine side, I guess like, that's because again we are just 2 people and Kat does all the art and design. So when you use the Unity engine, you make the game in the Unity engine, like the design and stuff. In our case, we don't do that. We use the Unity engine more as a low-level engine, and then like everything is done in what's called 3D Max, which is the artist tool. So Kat can pull she can put information in it about what the design is. This is a door. This is like this is a fire. This is a thing. And then like when she exported it, the engine, the code we wrote automatically create the level based on that. So the idea was like, well, maybe we can offer something with like Blender, like the free tool, the free version of a tool, so like people could do it. It's going to be more of it's always a question of time, and concept is kind of like maybe in the future if people really want it, and we'll see.
They might be able to. Sounds good. Well, thank you. It's on from Double Impact, and that was a demonstration of what's behind the scenes of Color Thief.
Thank you very much.
And we're here at RTX 2016, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.